This is Alchemy Explained, its deepest secret by The Alchemist.
Light and fire are the extensions of spirit when it is acting in a volatile way upon a substance or upon a creation. Alchemy is at the very core of esotericism, mysticism, as well as our spiritual awakening. So today, I'm going to be explaining what alchemy is and alchemy's deepest secret. Alchemy is hard to pin down because it's more than one thing and because it's a process. So, the four main ways that alchemy manifests when we're talking about alchemy is the art of purification through reducing. That's the first and foremost definition of alchemy. It would be purifying a substance, whatever that substance may be, whether it's our own psyche or whether it is a metal, whatever it is purifying it. It is putting it through a process known as the great work. And through that purification, there is a reduction happening to it, specifically a reduction until you get to its very core, known as a stone. Once you have exalted that substance into its highest form, known as gold. Then, alchemy is known as the art of transmutation. Now, the whole process from lead to gold, or the whole process of the great work, can already be considered the transmutation. You are transmuting a substance from one property into another property, or into its highest potential, its most exalted form. And that exaltation is a transmutation. So you're transmuting a substance, and this art of transmutation is what we call evolution. But in alchemical terms, it is the art of transmutation. But transmutation means evolution, or spiritual evolution of everything. So this was also alchemy's most ancient and original definition. It was transforming a substance through heat or through fire, specifically spiritual fire. So you have spirit, light, heat, and fire. And so when alchemy is talking about fire or heat or spirit, they're all talking about the same thing. They're all referring to spirit, but they're referring to the active side of spirit. Spirit, when spirit is in its fire form. Because spirit's more than one thing. And I know that can be complicated, but it's really important to know that when we're talking about alchemy. Because spirit, in its highest form, goes by the name fire water. That is what spirit, when it's known as the prima materia, is known as. It's known as the prima materia, it's known as Mercury, but really, when we're talking about spirit or prima materia in its highest form, one of its biggest nicknames was fire water. So spirit's a complicated thing, but when spirit is acting in its active form, it is fire. That is its dominant expression, and that's why fire gets linked with light and with source. It's because light and fire are the extensions of spirit when it is acting in a volatile way upon a substance or upon a creation. When spirit is transforming something, whether it's lead or whether it's your consciousness, your psyche, it is in its active form of fire. And that's what fire means at its highest level. Fire is referring to spirit. So, alchemy is the art of transmutation because spirit, aka fire, is acting upon it to evolve. Alchemy is the art of creation, purification by means of integration, transmutation by means of regeneration, more commonly known as healing, and the art of salvation, not just of our soul's salvation, but the universe's salvation. The art of salvation is literally the art of ascension. They are one and the same. So, as you can see, the deeper a person becomes initiated into the alchemical process, the art starts taking on a deeper meaning. The art starts to open up hidden dimensions of itself until alchemy becomes the art of salvation through ascension. Alchemy is the art of creation because alchemy is not just about transforming something, even though we know it through the lens of going through a spiritual awakening. We're going through an alchemical process. But alchemy is at the very core of this existence because alchemy, in its highest definition, not its most secret, but its highest definition, would be how creation comes into being. So it's transforming something, but even before it's transforming something, it's how you create. It's how you create a universe. It's how you create an experience. All the way through the dimensions. When we're descending our consciousness lower and lower into different dimensions or into different densities, that is a part of the alchemical process. That process of creating with light or fire is creating through spirit. It's using spirit in a way where it pulls or extends itself into a matrix or into a universe. So I'm calling a universe a matrix right now, simply because when Source creates, Source is creating through dropping its consciousness, descending its consciousness into a creation known as a matrix, but what we know as a universe. So when it's going through that descent, that's called involution. Involution is a part of the alchemical process. If you'd like to know more about exactly what involution is in all of its different forms, you can watch my video, Involution and Evolution. So involution is just as much a part of the alchemical process of evolution. They're just two different parts that play with one another to create. And that happens also with this universe of light. So we create through light. Light at the highest level still has a shadow. It will always have some form of shadow known as contrast. And through that contrast, that quota or ratio of light and dark, that's how creation in this universe becomes manifested. So that is the third part of what alchemy is. And the deepest secret to alchemy is that it is the art of salvation. Now, this one you're probably not going to be able to find anywhere. There's no resources to point you to, but this is the truth that is revealed, the gnosis that is revealed to a being when they have fully understood alchemy and not just any of its more face value or exoteric or even materialist paradigms of viewing alchemy through. Because there's several different ways that alchemy manifests as. And because it manifests as one thing like metallurgy or laboratory alchemy, the materialist mindset will only focus on the historical evidence and the alchemical historical recipes that were created and books on the laboratory art of alchemy. But alchemy was also known as the art of metallurgy and its sister sciences, or that alchemy derived from the ancient Egyptian priesthood. Ancient Egypt was known as Chem, so that's where we get alchemy from, the land of Chem. It was also known in Chem as the black art, because that's what Chem means. Chem means black because the Nile River had soil that was black due to the Nile River being overflooded. So it was known as the land of Chem because it was the land of very rich black soil. So the majority of what we know about spiritual alchemy dates back to ancient Egypt, because everything before ancient Egypt we have become disconnected from. So we don't know that information. We're just basing it off of this epoch. And in this epoch, the best information we have is coming from the land of Chem. So our collective memory has pieced together that alchemy is more than just a laboratory art that is being performed on metals. And our collective memory has understood and pieced together that it's about a transformation happening within our internal being, that there is some sort of transformation that is taking place. And this transformation to our spirit, to our psyche, to our body, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, we know that it has to do with a transformation towards a more evolved state of being. But the most hidden aspect of alchemy, the one that is not connected anymore to our collective memory, and perhaps not even just because it's the most secret, but still, perhaps the most important element of alchemy, is that alchemy is the art of salvation. It is the art of liberating the soul from its adhesion to matter. Let me say this another way. The deepest secret of alchemy is when God goes into its own creation to go rescue portions of its own consciousness that are stuck in a dream state, in an illusory state that now has turned deeply into a nightmare because that creation has fallen. It has fallen asleep. Only when it falls, it's not cute. So alchemy is when God rescues itself by going into the dream to go save itself. Alchemy is the art of salvation. This secret meaning of alchemy has to do with Christos, or what we know as Christ consciousness, because Christ consciousness can't fall. It's literally would be called something different if it were fallen. But when it's not in its fallen state, when a being is in its full enlightened state of remembrance, of unity, of everything, when it is in its enlightened state, it is not fallen. So there's no such thing as there being a Christ consciousness that has fallen. Christ consciousness enters into the dream state in order to activate its own awakening and therefore help others awaken. That's why it's known as the Savior. It's not an actual, just one singular entity or being. It is a state of consciousness. And because of that, it holds templates. It holds an ability to align the physiology with it through DNA activations. And these are very important when it comes to alchemy, because when we're talking about an alchemical process of transmutation, it's a transmutation process happening literally at a physiological level to us through DNA activations and other things that happen to our energy field. So the Christos avatar, or Christ consciousness, is what enters into a dream or enters deep into the matrix of that universe to awaken the portions of itself, the portions of other beings and other consciousness, so that they don't get stuck in that nightmare, or they don't get stuck in that dream state of unconsciousness, or what I call, they don't get stuck in spiritual amnesia. And this is the deepest secret of alchemy. Even though alchemy predates the current name it was given, this art of transmutation, regeneration, and creation has always been, because it is the very structure of reality. The fact we call it alchemy does not mean it was discovered or even began at the moment in history that we can point to. Even beyond Egyptian mysticism, there has always been even more knowledge of this process of redemption, because alchemy is the origins and transformation of the natural world. The alchemy symbol represents the quintessence, or the fifth element, the philosopher's stone, and the transmutation from base consciousness into solar consciousness. But we call solar consciousness by another word. We call it enlightenment. The symbol represents the creation process. It is the transformation of the material body and the soul through spirit,
or primal light. Look. From root to crown. From primal brain to conscious brain.
It is the transformation of the material body and the soul through spirit or primal light. What this means is that alchemy is the process of transformation of each part of our being. This change initiates us into an angelic being called Christos. The human experience itself is a spiritual initiation. The prefix man, as in mankind, means demigod. And alchemy is the initiation that we call a spiritual awakening. So the spiritual awakening process is actually stages in an alchemical process. And the goal of this alchemical process is to integrate our divine nature with our human nature, uniting our mind with our heart, and merging with our higher self. The quintessence has many names. Its most well-known name is spirit, but its other names are ether, the fifth element, the prima materia, fire water, primal sound, and primal light. The ancients called the quintessence celestial vapor because it holds the information of all of creation inside its mercurial waters. I explained that in more detail in my video, The Alchemy of Water. The quintessence, or the fifth element, is known as a carrier of intelligence. This is very important to understand about the quintessence, and this is its most hidden function. That alchemy is the process of creation by taking the information contained inside the quintessence of primal light and primal sound and organizing that light and sound into physical reality, structuring thoughts into material forms. Just like how there are director molecules that intelligently organize other molecules into a sequence that will bring well-being and health. The quintessence, or spirit, is the intelligent director of thoughts and intention. It is alive and can be interacted with. Our thoughts, emotions, and intentions can communicate with the quintessence.
I think what the quintessence is what we were talking about in that last video on the first eye. I think that's what the quintessence is basically that connection that we have with God, that spirit, your soul. That's why she said I think she said the spirit or the soul is the fire water and the quintessence is the fire water, or the fifth uh or the ether being, your soul, your spirit. So I think that's what the quintessence is just the observer, the part of us that is connected to God, that one droplet of water compared to the collective ocean.
And direct it how to assist us. This explains why thoughts create reality and why our intentions can program water. It's through the carrier of intelligence, which is spirit or quintessence.
Yep.
Being programmed by our intentions to carry out a specific function, like meditating over water and directing or intending that water improves our health. This is the core part of alchemy, that alchemy doesn't operate the same way on everyone. It is alive and responding uniquely. It operates based off of the unique chemistry of all of the factors involved, most of all, the factor of our own consciousness. Hence, the most accurate name out of all of alchemy's different meanings is the Arabic name, the divine chemistry. Alchemy is so important and it is so core to this experience that it is performed in every region of the world through its own paradigm. So one region of the world will perform alchemy in a specific way through a specific paradigm. And then another region of the world will perform alchemy in their own way, specific to their own paradigm. And then another region will perform it based off of their own paradigm. For instance, Western alchemy comes from the Islamicate region. And the Islamicate region was very concerned with alchemy being processed through the paradigm of lead turning into gold. So this whole concept of gold came from the Islamicate region. And that's why Western alchemy sees alchemy through the lens of gold, something being turned into gold.
I want to talk about this. She had brought up the fact that everybody's alchemical process, or the process of going through alchemy, is different. This is something I want to bring up because this is shit. It's not even just the alchemical process of ourselves, but it's like the spiritual awakening aspect as well. The thing with spirituality, bro, people, especially I'm seeing this nowadays with this new age shit, they making spirituality into like a religion when that shit is not a religion. It's a self-governing process. It's a self process. It is yourself basically waking up to your spiritual aspects, to the spiritual world, to your spirit. It is not, oh, you need to have crystals and you need to do this and you need to play it by the book. There is no book with this spirituality shit. Yes, you can go to gurus. Yes, you can go to people. Yes, you can watch people like me to kind of put puzzle pieces together. But at the end of the day, they're still going through their spiritual process. Maybe some of them. I know I am. I've reached a certain level with this shit now that I've kind of moved away from spirituality and I'm more kind of just enjoying my human experience with the knowledge that I have at the moment. At this point, it's the building phase, I guess you could say, the creation phase. But when you're going on this path of a spiritual awakening, a spiritual journey, you have to understand that this is your journey at the end of the day. It is your journey. Your alchemical process is specific to you. Your spiritual journey is specific to you. It is not he say, she say. It is not up, it is not down. It is, this shit is not a religion. At the end of the day, bro, next time you feel the need to play by the book or do what the majority does, i.e., do with whatever the spiritual community does, understand that this is your journey at the end of the day. You are a sovereign being. You are a self-governing being, meaning you make up the rules. You make this shit up. Nobody else does. What you believe and have conviction in is what is real. That's why I say there are multiple truths. Yeah, there is one true truth, but there are multiple truths because at the end of the day, somebody could be believing in black magic and that they're being attacked by black magic, but I could be getting attacked and nothing happens to me because I don't believe in that shit. I don't have conviction in that shit, but somebody else does. You get what I'm trying to say? Your life at the end of the day is self-governing. You are a self-governing being. You are sovereign, meaning this experience, this spiritual journey, this experience, this alchemical process, it is all made up by you. So don't feel the need to fall into what the spiritual community is doing. Don't feel the need to fall into shit what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Don't feel the need to. Get the game, you know what I'm saying? Obviously get the game, soak up the game, soak up as much as you need to or whatever. Take it all with a grain of salt and see what resonates, see what doesn't, see what applies, see what doesn't. Do your research, do what you need to do. But at the end of the day, understand that you are a sovereign being. You are a self-governing being. You rule yourself. You are the ruler of your temple. You are the ruler of your temple. You are the ruler of yourself. This is your journey.
In Indian alchemy, that was about the physical vessel into what we would know today as a Kundalini awakening. So it was more of a biological and physiological process of alchemy. And then in Asia, alchemy was known mainly through our energy field. It was known as the golden elixir because it was referring to our energy field. And what happens to the state of the aura, what happens to how we appear when our energy field is transmuted in a specific way that has to do with us being in harmony or being in union with our higher self. But Asia was also doing alchemy when it came to perfumes, when it came to plants. So we also get a lot of the ways that Western alchemy was influenced with its making of perfumes and fabrics from Asian alchemy. They were also where we get the idea of elixirs from. So when we hear about the Philosopher's Stone being an elixir, anything that has to do with alchemy being in the form of a tonic or an elixir came from Asian alchemy. So alchemy means many different things, and
I want to talk about this too. When I was on my first come up of like my spiritual awakening, I had this thought, like, if you really think about it, all the spiritual, this has to also do with like spirituality, you know what I'm saying, the spiritual community or like communities within themselves, specifically spiritual community, they all come from different regions. because every different region has experienced life from a different lens in a different perspective. So you got the Hindus who believe in Hinduism, but they only believe in Hinduism in that practice, in that teaching, because of their experience of life, because of their experience of God. I'll say that. You got the Buddhists who believe in Buddhism because of their experience of God or of life. You have Islam. You have the Hebrew, not the Hebrews, but I'm sorry, but the Abrahamic religion. You have all these religions in these spiritual communities, and they're all formed by perception of life and experience of life. Over time, you get more and more people to get recruited onto this. This is why when I was studying cults and shit, this is literally where they come from. A lot of spiritual communities are literally cults. They're just socially accepted cults. That's how they are. But that's what they are. That's why you can't play that. You can't do that shit nowadays. You can have a community, but you just gotta be careful on how, when it comes down to having a community that is spiritual based, you have to guide them. Don't guide them to worshiping you, but guide them to worshiping God. Guide them to worshiping. Lead them to the ocean. Lead them. You dig what I'm saying? As soon as you get them worshiping you, that's when it becomes a cult. That's why you hear cult-like followings, cult-like fan base. It's basically a community of people who worship that person. That's not something I want to be. I'm not a false idol. I'm a normal human being living a normal human experience. I just happen to have a passion to be able to express these things, express what I'm learning, express the game that I'm soaking up. I have a passion for this shit. So you gotta understand, bro, like, if you have a passion for the same thing, come from a place of trying to guide people towards God, guide people towards that ocean, guide people towards the collective consciousness, guide people towards their sovereign being, to the power that they have within. Don't try to get them to worship you. That shit is a cult.
It's processed through many different paradigms, but there's some core features shared inside this, and that is alchemy is transforming a substance into something else. But I will say there is a very important element that came in the Hellenistic period to add to our spiritual knowledge and collective memory of alchemy, and that is what's called Hellenistic physics, or through Aristotle. And even though this is one of the more new threads of adding on to alchemy, this is one of the most important threads. I'm not going to be covering Paracelsus. I'm not going to be covering alchemy as a whole. I'm going to be covering the core features that have to do with our understanding of what alchemy is as a process. And when it comes to the Hellenistic period of alchemy, even though we got our knowledge of it from the West through Islamic alchemy, there was a new feature brought into it, and that was through the elements. If you'd like to know more about the elements and what they have to do with alchemy, I did a whole video on it. I highly suggest you watch it. It's called Spiritual Alchemy, the Esoteric Art of Ascension. And in that I talk about how the elements are what we use to create different experiences. And this is even true for alchemists today that make their own elixirs, or they do their own healing protocols based off of the elements and how they interact with the constellations and specific times of the year. So alchemy in and of itself is omnipresent. What we'll really end up seeing when we really understand alchemy is that it is how your consciousness interfaces with reality. Your consciousness interfaces with reality in a way where we know it in this age as manifestation. But our consciousness interfaces with reality in a way to where our thoughts and our consciousness can create, can transform reality. And what was I saying earlier about how alchemy is the art of creation, and alchemy is also the art of transformation? Well, our thoughts and our consciousness can interface, can influence and impact the external world and our reality in a way to where it can change it for its betterment. And when we know how the as above, so below influence and impacts on our conscience, reality. And what was I saying earlier about how alchemy is the art of creation, and alchemy is also the art of transformation? Well, our thoughts and our consciousness can interface, can influence and impact the external world and our reality in a way to where it can change it.
And y'all think y'all not master manifested. This is literally manifestation. Y'all think y'all can't manifest, but this is literally manifestation. Your thoughts, your actions, and your belief system, as well as your thought loops, your actions, and your belief system. What you could have conviction in is what literally shapes your reality. It's what shapes your perception of your reality. But y'all swear y'all need other people to tell you how to, oh, this is how you manifest. You need 20 different books on how to manifest. Man, I'm trying to tell you, bro. When I was trying to do this manifestation shit, bro, I was watching like 50 different people on how to manifest, and they all had different ways of doing it. I found neuro knowledge, and I ain't gonna lie, from there I just stuck to that one. I just stuck to that simple one, and I finally got an understanding basis of what manifestation is. Ever since then, I've been consciously manifesting way better. Like, one I say in specific is peace. Boy, when I tell you my life was everywhere, it was everywhere. But when I finally got to locking in on how to manifest, the first thing I wanted to do was manifest peace. As soon as I started manifesting peace, one, it just helped me realize that, oh shit, I can manifest. Like, this shit is real. It just kept the manifestations going. Like, I would notice like certain manifestations wouldn't even be within like me consciously trying to do it. Like, it would be on some, like, I'd probably be thinking, oh, I want something that in the morning, I mean during my rising, I'll probably be like, yo, I want this, or I'm not feeling this, or whatever. And then throughout that day, or sometime out that day, that want will manifest. So this is what I'm saying, like, bro, y'all don't think y'all manifest, but y'all literally have manifested your whole life up to this point. You have manifested your whole life up to this point because you are a self-governing being. You are a sovereign being.
For its betterment. And when we know how the as above, so below really works, when we understand the world around us and the world within us, and we see the stars and the constellations without coming from within, as within, so without.
As the universe,
now
so the
we
soul.
can start to understand how to transform or how to create reality in a way where it's going with nature and infusing its remedies, infusing its tonics with nature. So alchemists today are using alchemy as forms of healing. They're using it as forms of healing remedies or healing elixirs, healing tonics that are in accordance with the environment around them, using nature and using their understanding of the fundamental nature of reality so that they can infuse nature and the elements in different ways, specific ways, into their own remedies. So even though we know spiritual alchemy to be one that has to do with the psyche, or one that has to do with the transformation taking place within our own consciousness, alchemy is most practiced today by alchemists who are using some sort of tonic or elixir or remedy in a way to help embetter their physical vehicle, which will help them impact or transform their psyche, which will be more in alignment with spirit. So they're using these tonics to exalt their body, mind, spirit. They're using them to unify, to purify, and to heal them. So none of these different forms of alchemy are even against one another. You can kind of see them all as the same thing, but from a different angle. So you could see the art of purification, or even the art of healing, alchemy done through healing remedies or homeopathy, or alchemy done through the act of salvation, or alchemy done through the act of transmutation. All of these different facets that we can perceive alchemy through are really about awakening. All the definitions of alchemy point back to an awakening. And what is being awakened? The awakening of the body, mind, spirit into gnosis. The body, mind, spirit is being awakened in some way, transformed in some way into a more conscious or more awakened, enlightened state. I hope this has set you on fire. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through
this was a fire video. I ain't gonna lie. A lot of gems, a lot of game. I had to shut the fuck up this video. I ain't gonna lie, bro. Cause even still within this lifetime, right now, currently, I'm trying to become the best alchemist, the highest alchemist. Not the best within everybody, but I'm talking about like a high ranking one, or one that just understands alchemy like this. I can be able to explain it. When it comes down to you, or it comes down to anybody, I can be able to explain it and teach it in a generalized setting or a generalized way. That's where I want to get when it comes down to this alchemy shit. But I understand that I do it constantly. I just don't have the language to explain it or to be able to. So she gave me a good blueprint, gave me a lot of game, gave me a lot of you know gems in this video. I appreciate this video. I like this video right here. Yeah, yeah, yeah.